Welcome back to New Rockstars. This is The Big Question, the show that gives you too much information about whether hell is canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and whether, to, I guess, cross-paraphrase Odin in Jean-Paul Sartre, hell is not a place, it is another people.
Nice pronunciation.
It was all over the place, I think.
Almost nailed it. Sartre.
Sartre. I'm Erik Voss. Hey, here with me to journey through the MCU Afterlife is Marina Mastros.
I'm back, guys.
Welcome back, Marina.
Thank you. I'm halfway alive.
Well, fitting, because that's what we're talking about today. Right on the cusp of are we alive or are we dead? What happens to us? I don't think you were ever truly at death's door. We don't want to worry our viewers too much, but we're happy to see you semi-healthy, healthy enough to be back on New Rockstars.
Oh, yes, I'm happy to be here. Erik, I have a question for you, though.
Uh-oh.
How does the afterlife work in the MCU?
Yes, a very good question, especially now that Black Panther 2 is kind of moving forward with production this summer. A producer on the series confirming that they're not going to be trying to recreate the late Chadwick Boseman's likeness with VFX. Thank Voss.
Yeah, honestly.
No, we would not want to see that. But this brings up the question of Black Panther, more than any other MCU installment, has totally embraced that idea of death, of spirituality, the afterlife. And yeah, I think whatever they do with this movie, they're going to have to lean more into what the ancestral plane is, and in order to know what's coming up, we should dig into this question of what happens, or how based on the real world is the MCU version of the afterlife. Well, going through the MCU, as of now, we have seen 7 established versions of the afterlife in MCU canon, but also on top of that, there's like 2 or 3 additional sort of realms or afterlives that we might be able to infer based on clues or things that might be afterlife-y. So we're going to break down all of these to see if any of these could be the same afterlife, or if there's any crossover, if we can group any of these together to make any big statements about what happens when an Avenger dies.
And even though there's 7 of them, Erik and I won't be getting into any.
No, we won't. Unless it's the dark ones, and we're already in them. All right, let's start with the big one that we know about, the Ancestral Plane from the Black Panther film, the Wakandan afterlife. So the Ancestral Plane of Wakanda is based on Djalia in the Black Panther comics. It's a spiritual realm where the Black Panther can commune with their ancestors. And the plane seems only accessible by those who consume the heart-shaped herb, and they get buried, right? Which is supposed to symbolize your death, you're crossing over. I think it might still be an afterlife for all Wakandans, because Njobu, Killmonger's dad, is there, and he was never a Black Panther. He was part of the royal lineage, but he was not a Black Panther. He never consumed the heart-shaped herb.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And you also, if all Wakandans get to go there, I'm pretty sure they all get to turn into panthers, because they were all cats when they jumped off the tree.
That's right. That's kind of part of it, right? It's this, that's how T'Challa saw them. It was this kind of this interesting subjective quality, right? That you commune with the souls that are important to you in this moment. It doesn't seem like it's an actual just party where all these ghosts are hanging out together before you get there. They seem to be anchored to where they were buried. So T'Challa sees T'Chaka, who was buried in Wakanda with those ancestors, but Killmonger sees Njobu, but the version of that is their Oakland apartment, because that's where he was buried. He says he was abandoned in Oakland. So I think that's an interesting take on the afterlife, is that it is specifically tailored for the person who is visiting it in that moment. It's not an external realm that exists before you go
And that makes sense, just like in general, if you're creating a whole world and an entire society, they would have their own religious beliefs, and those beliefs would be reflective of the ones that exist in real life, and that is how a lot of real cultures perceive the afterlife.
Yes, it's not a place that exists before you get there. It is a place, it's an experience that is a transitional thing that is meant to help you embrace the fact that you don't need to be part of a corporeal world anymore, And speaking of that brings us to our second afterlife-esque thing that we've seen, the astral dimension of the Doctor Strange film, the Sorcerer Realm, which kind of tells us that there is an existence of souls in the MCU, and that's interesting because it tells us a bit about where they go.
It kind of has to be, because it's in multiple films in multiple different versions, but I like that they let everybody experience it in their own way, but it's like definite. for me.
It exists, and many actually believe the ancestral plane of the Black Panther is the same thing as the astral dimension of Doctor Strange, because they do kind of work similarly. Souls of the living detach from their corporeal bodies and commune with other souls. But the big difference is that the sorcerer's soul appears to disappear the moment of their corporeal death. So when the Ancient One flatlines, her soul vanished from that astral dimension. Doctor Strange was left alone. So you could argue that the astral dimension is less of an afterlife than it is like a parallel plane to the mortal world.
Yeah, and also you can get there before you die and sort of float around. Have we explored where you go? Because she disappears, but we don't know if that means she's gone forever, because maybe she can come back into that parallel universe. We don't know.
We don't know. And from what we can tell, obviously death is not necessarily final in the MCU. People come back in all kinds of forms, whether it's through a multiverse alternate reality or in WandaVision's case, whatever that's going to end up being rebooted, you know? Yeah, with Tony Stark, with certain other characters, there is like another precipice on the other side of these transitional realms to where it is just bliss. It is just nothing. And we can't understand that as humans, but it could be a great thing. It could be a scary thing. We'll get more into that, because there's some things that kind of start to broach that subject. Starting with the soul realm. This is the orange-colored soul dimension that we saw in Infinity War and Endgame when characters use all 6 stones to, at the same time, to destroy or to bring back souls. They briefly enter this orange-colored plane, and it's described as, the word used was an existential way station. That's what the filmmakers called it. And it's before they either move on or before they return to reality. So Thanos met with Gamora when she was a young girl, that form. And then Tony Stark, this was in a deleted scene, he met with Morgan Stark as an older young woman. Cute. And the filmmakers actually said they considered a scene which Banner, when he snapped everyone back, would have met with the soul of Natasha in that moment.
That would have tugged everyone's heartstrings.
Yeah, that would have been great. And, you know, the VFX artists working on it didn't really understand fully what it meant. They, you know, when they worked on Infinity War at one point, they considered making the fluid surface to be an ocean of blood for Thanos. And the filmmakers are like, no, this will just all be taking place in kind of this fluid space that's inside the Soul Stone.
They were like, but you don't want an ocean of blood? I don't understand.
He's like, all right, we're going to save the ocean of blood for another movie, because we're using that ocean of blood.
It's going in somewhere.
But the fact that this is kind of inside the Soul Stone, you could argue it's like kind of a pocket reality that is opened up by the Soul Stone that you briefly enter. So what's important about this is, like the Ancestral Plane, like the Astral Dimension, the Soul Realm appears to be temporary. It's not a permanent afterlife. It's kind of like an ethereal plane that's, you know, again, constructed for a soul to transition, to process what's happening to them before they return to the living world or they move on to the other side.
You might parallel it to like the concept of purgatory.
Yeah, purgatory or limbo. You know, it's for a lot of people that is what the afterlife is, especially if you watch something like The Good Place without spoiling that series. It's so good. But like, you know, The Good Place, once you do eventually see it, people are like, well, then what's next? What is after this? Well, what is after this is just bliss. It's just letting go of everything no longer existing. And that's okay.
It's just the blue dungeon.
You got it. Ding, 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 ding. You jumped to the end. You knew where this was going. I knew
Erik's
it.
there.
I freaking knew it. Da, 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 da. All right, let's move on to our fourth afterlife in the MCU. We have not actually seen this, but it exists. Valhalla. This is the Norse version of the afterlife in the Thor movies. We never went there, but we saw people go to it. Odin and his wife Frigga both ascended to Valhalla. They disintegrated into glowing particles and they floated up to the heavens. Now, Valhalla is reserved uniquely for Asgardians who die in combat. It's a warrior afterlife. In Norse mythology, half of the fallen warriors are led by the Valkyries to Valhalla, while the other half go to the goddess Freyja's field Folkvang. Nailed it.
Sartre.
Yeah, I think I was closer with Sartre. And I like this idea of a warrior afterlife because in Thor: The Dark World, Frigga died in combat.
Yeah.
She was a badass in that final moment. That is what led to her passing on to Valhalla. In Ragnarok, Odin did not die in the heat of battle. He did die of old age, but that guy has fought his entire life. Traditionally, Valhalla is his realm. So I would say he's enough of a veteran to warrant that destination. Yeah. So here's where we reach kind of the interesting midpoint of, even though it's the fifth one that we're doing, the blip. The blip is something, right? It is something.
I mean, it has to be because you spend 5 years there, so.
Right? It is where or what happened to all the dusted in Infinity War and Endgame.
Where do the lonely souls go?
That disintegration of Odin does parallel the dusting disintegration of snap victims, suggesting, this idea of fading into death. However, where the blip victims went remains a mystery. Right. It's presumed they were just transferred directly to the idea of non-existence. No limbo, no purgatory, just skip directly to death,
Fast pass.
But then Peter Parker returned in Endgame, and he described the experience of Tony Stark as having no memory of that intervening period. It was just like 1 second he dusted, the next he was back, and Doctor Strange was like, come on, we gotta go fight. And it's interesting, in the Infinity Gauntlet comic that Infinity War was based on, Rick Jones gets snapped away, and when he returns, he says that he met Elvis. So that would imply you went somewhere, right?
Oh my God. Does that imply that Elvis also got snapped and was still alive at the time?
Oh yeah, Infinity Gauntlet comic, it's crazy. Alf shows up in the Infinity Gauntlet comics. Like celebrities snap. It's like The Leftovers, where they're like, the Pope snap, Gary Busey snap.
That's great.
It's insane. Now, I'm going to mention this, even though it's not MCU canon, Netflix Daredevil, Punisher universe, The Defenders on Netflix. When Black Sky returns, resurrected by the Hand, Alexandra tells her, quote, you were born, you lived and died, and what you saw on the other side, the darkness, the absence of everything. It's horrifying, isn't it? So that darkness could be referring to some of what of these other things we've seen in the MCU. And I bring this up, Marina, because so far we've been talking about the positive afterlives, the good places. They're all kind of warm, ethereal, family reuniting, transitory, but the blip represents a kind of just neutral death. Again, you do not pass go. You just go directly to death. But now we move on to the MCU afterlives that are kind of jails. They're negative. They're bad places, ones that offer actually more tangible but permanent prisons. And we'll start here with the sixth afterlife we know about, the dark dimension. This is the timeless dimension of Dormammu in the Doctor Strange film. It's a parallel plane of reality in which chaos reigns.
And you get f***ed up makeup. When you go there and you come back, your makeup gets f***ed up.
Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. Your mascara is running all over your face, and you can't do anything about it. And when Caecilius and his zealots get sucked in there, their souls get transformed into these mindless gray husks.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask people on the street, if you were to go jaywalking and say, what do you think hell is?
Oh my God, this is so hard.
I bet you'd get 4 out of 10 people be like, a psychedelic space where everything's glowing and I can't think and it's forever. And it's like, oh, you mean the dark dimension? They're like, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and they're all from the South. That would be my first guess, too.
Yes, there you go. Take it. Yes.
That's what I would consider hell to be. But, for people who love black light posters, they might think it's heaven.
Get him, Erik. Get him.
Losers and your Spencer's Gifts and your black light posters. That was me. That was me. I was like, yes, fill my room with black lights. And they're like, you don't want normal bulbs? I'm like, no, everything's going to be purple. And I screw it in. It's like, oh no, everything's glowing. Gross. Okay, but yeah, at the end of the day, still, this is terrifying. And in the MCU, we got dangerously close to losing everything we know and love to that.
Yeah.
So it's scary.
Everybody almost turned into a pillar of salt or whatever. Gray, dusty salt.
Oh yeah. That's hell. That is hell. Except this version of hell, number 7, Hell, Hel, just one L. That was Hela's banishment realm that we saw in the Thor movies. This is a place Hela was banished to. It is actually a region within Niflheim, one of the 9 realms. Now, presumably, Marina, Hell was named after Hela got there, because it would be weird that Hela would exist before, and then Hela would just be named after this place, but then would get sent there. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like naming your son Rikers and be like, you know where you're going.
She landed like Jack Skellington in Christmastown and looked up and it just said Hela, and she was like... And she sang a song.
So Odin banished Hela to hell thousands of years ago, and it's a bunch of bullshit, because she shouldn't have gotten banished there. She was just doing what Thor did, but she was a woman, and that's why she got banished. It's a bunch of bullshit. And I had made the case that Hela was the most misunderstood villain. She would have been great as a ruler of Asgard. She just didn't have great diplomacy and didn't care about trying to win over hearts and minds.
She also got done dirty in the wig department in that movie. Like, they just did her.
I don't know. I love those antlers.
Oh, the antlers, yes, but whenever she had like real hair, I was like, ooh, girl.
Oh, just the
they did
just
you
the black.
dirty with that. But yes, Erik, thank you for speaking up because she got done dirty and she would have been great.
I love Hela.
Yeah.
I want her to come back. She needs to be the new like Loki in all of these movies. Like Hela's, but she's Blanchett. She's like, I'll do one of these, and then you gotta pay. So like, okay, I get it. So she was stuck down there for thousands of years. She tried to escape once, she failed, and then she did escape again after Odin croaked. Now, again, kind of like the astral dimension, this version of hell is not really an afterlife. It's just kind of a prison. Like Hela was still alive down there. She didn't return there, I don't think, when she died in Ragnarok. So that is our seventh one. But that brings us to what we think is coming up. Some other possible afterlives that have been implied based off what we know and where things are going. Hell, 2 L's in the MCU. So this would be a more traditional version of hell, and it might exist going forward in the MCU. It could be tied to the fire and brimstone aesthetic of the realm Muspelheim, and remember the opening sequence of Ragnarok? But if Mephisto exists, so must hell in the MCU.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is, and it's so cool because we're gonna get Ghost Rider from there. We're gonna get everything supernatural and demonic coming from there. Hopefully it's gonna tie into WandaVision. Now, technically, Mephisto does exist in the MCU. If you consider everything on screen in the MCU to be canon, Mephisto showed up as a barely visible piece of text Easter egg on a file in the very first Avengers film. This is before that they knew exactly how they're gonna adapt Infinity Gauntlet. Maybe that's why it was put in there.
They laid their bed and now they have to lie in it.
Yeah, as I said, many of us think that Mephisto might be behind what we're seeing in WandaVision. Hopefully that will be what we see going forward. That might be behind why Scott Derrickson left from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because they wouldn't let him bring in hell into that, because it would cause problems if they tried to market Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in China and they don't like hell things in their movies, because they're, culture, their folklore and various censorship reasons. But they can do it on Disney Plus. Disney Plus isn't going to be in China, and that's maybe why they moved it into WandaVision. We'll find out. We'll see. Now, I also want to talk about the quantum realm. The quantum realm obviously exists in the MCU. Hard to describe as an afterlife because it really doesn't have anything to do with death or spirituality, but it does remain the biggest what the mystery box currently in the MCU. So sure, that could be what the MCU considers an afterlife if they were to say everything beyond this plane is the quantum realm. I'm thinking they might also merge it with the negative zone from Fantastic Four. There's a lot of things they could do with it, and they could also say that's also where you go when you die.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, you can exist there and time doesn't function the same. So that in itself, you could argue that in itself is a sort of afterlife.
Yeah, it's a kind of afterlife. And the last one we're going to talk about is the Cancerverse. So in the Abnett and Lanning Marvel Comics, following characters like Quasar, the new Guardians of the Galaxy, Nova, there is this crazy because comics dimension called the Cancerverse. There are these cosmic entities called the Many-Angled Ones. I love it. They found a way to defeat death and give eternal life. But in this dimension, every inhabitant is corrupted in a way that makes this kind of universe-wide living corpse, thus the Cancerverse.
Yeah.
It's insane. Now, there were some theories in the MCU that one shot of Meredith Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy, Meredith died from brain cancer, could be her kind of soul reaching out from the Cancerverse. I think James Gunn debunked it. But in the way that she reached out to Peter Quill in the moment, he saw her. He said, Mom, there was something that he was in. If you want to call that the ancestral plane or the astral dimension or that limbo state, he was in a different state of consciousness there. Yeah.
You could argue that these are all just like the same thing, but coming through with different representations of like who you are. And also, this is crazy because like never underestimate the connection of a mom with her kid.
Mommy's coming, little Billy! Little child!
There's like real ass stories where something happens to your kid and a mom will much later like realize that she woke up at the exact time that something was happening, and it's like that shit's real, and I'm glad they like bothered to include it.
And I think because it's so real is why it's so impactful when we see that in a film. You know, these movies, that's why I think why we love the Marvel movies. They aren't just comic book Easter eggs. They have these human moments that like transcend just like simple plot action boom booms. It's real moments of connection that are beautiful. And Marina, you make such an interesting point, right? The MCU versions of the Afterlife are all kind of connected in that way. They might all be the same type of good place or the same type of bad place.
The whole time?
Think about it. They all have that in common. They're all kind of transition-y, warm family reunions. You could argue that each of them are just what the dying person sees when they're about to cross over. And on the other side of that is that bliss. It's that kind of good place walking through the forest
Blue
gate.
dungeon.
And that's kind of what they all have in common. The ancestral plane, the astral dimension, the soul realm, Valhalla. They could all just be different words of the same thing. But what's cool about this, and what I'm excited over, all the bad afterlives are all also the same. They're all tangible places that you get trapped in. They're all prisons. They're all vivid and they're all scary. And they tell us going forward that hell, if all these things are just shades of hell, is going to be very real in the MCU. And real things like Ghost Rider are going to come charging out of those fiery gates.
Nicolas Cage!
I'm so fucking excited for it.
If Nicolas Cage comes back, I'm gonna shit my pants.
It can't be Nick Cage. Hopefully he has a cameo, but it can't be Nick Cage.
Wait. My phone fell down.
Because you were so intense about Nick Cage.
Erik, I love you, but I swear to God, it's gonna be Nick Cage or bust.
I think that's what Nick Cage screamed at you outside your window last night. It's gotta be me!
Guess what? It's gonna be me.
It's like when Samuel Jackson was like, I won't be in Snakes on a Plane unless it's called Snakes on a Plane.
I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
And Nick Cage was like, it's gonna be me.
The ghost of Ghost Rider is like, I'm not gonna let you put me in a movie unless Nick Cage is playing.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right, we're gonna move on to some more questions. First, we want to thank our friends at Hawthorne. Whether you are treating yourself or shopping for someone on your list, finding the right holiday gift is tough. This holiday season, Hawthorne is making gift giving fun and simple. Hawthorne is a premium tailored personal care brand that makes it easy for guys to feel and smell their best. You start with their quiz. They ask you things like, what's your favorite drink? Or what kind of skin do you have? Or do you smoke? And I'm like, well, I can tell you that I don't smoke and that I like fruit juice, but I don't know what kind of skin that I have. And then you look at their options like, oh, I guess mine is kind of dry and sensitive because I get weird bumps in places.
Erik, move on. Erik, move on.
Okay. It was actually really, really easy to take this quiz. It took less time than I normally spend double checking to remember if I put on deodorant today. It takes forever for me to determine that.
Erik, move on. Erik.
The products they sent me were great. They sent me this whole box of stuff, but there's this body wash that this is the only body wash I want to use ever again. It smells so good. And it's like, they really did make something that's tailored for me. This is exactly what I want to smell like. It feels so good on my skin. Before this, I was walking out of the shower feeling so dry and chalky, throughout the day and sticky and itchy. And now it's like, no, this is good. This is what I should have felt all this time.
This is the way.
Erik's been using face soap for body wash, and every woman in the world is like, what are you doing?
It's a great way to build personalized gifts for the guys in your life and to show that you care enough to get them a gift tailored to their needs. You're welcome, Uncle Doug. Hawthorne is a fun and convenient way to get super high quality products tailored specifically for men. Hawthorne even takes the risk out of it by giving you free shipping on your order and returns. And if you don't like their products, they'll even retailer them based on your feedback. Get special offers for the holidays going on right now by visiting hawthorne.co. That is HAWTHORNE.co to check out their special holiday offers. Hawthorne.co. We also want to thank our friends at HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh lets you skip those trips to the grocery store and makes home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. They offer convenient, no-contact delivery to your doorstep for easy home cooking with the family. HelloFresh's high-quality, pre-portioned ingredients help you make meals that are both nutritious and so tasty they're worth a trip to the dark dimension and back. You can easily change your delivery days or your meal plan preferences, so you can skip a week whenever you need right on the HelloFresh app. Not long ago, I got this HelloFresh recipe for crispy buffalo spice chicken with mashed potatoes and roasted carrots. They have this blue cheese sauce that went over it. It was really freaking good. It was like a Bechtold style Thanksgiving. Felt like I was eating it with Uncle Tommy. Now, you might have heard me mention Green Chef recently. HelloFresh actually owns Green Chef and Every Plate, which allows them to offer a wider array of meal plans to choose from. I love switching between these. Hello Chef one week, Green Chef the other, when my tastes change or when I want to eat a little differently. Now my listeners can enjoy both brands at a discount with me. Go to HelloFresh.com/BigQuestion90 and use the code BIGQuestion90 to get $90 off, including free shipping. That's $90 off and free shipping on your order when you go to HelloFresh.com/BigQuestion90 and use the code BigQuestion90.
If you eat what Erik eats at the same time that Erik eats it, then you become Erik.
Yeah, I think we do a Freaky Friday, and then that's the only way I'm going to escape from here. So please do this. Oh boy. Okay, now comes the time for a bite-sized question that Marina and I are going to tag team. So Civilian on Discord asks, if Thor was in better shape when he faced Thanos in Endgame, would Tony Stark be alive right now? Boy, oh boy, we are fat-shaming Fat Thor.
Erik! Oh my god.
I guess that's what we're doing. That's what they ask. We're going to deliver. We got to ask this question. Did Michelle Obama put this in there? I know she is concerned about our physical. We got to be fit and ready to fight when Thanos comes.
I can see why one would ask, only because compared to how he used to be, does that make a difference, right? And we can say that for the most part, no, which, you know, is an answer to like, you know, should we be fat shaming? No, because it really does. You can be fit at any size.
That's right.
So for the most part, Thor's poor physical condition doesn't really hold anyone back when they fight Thanos.
Yeah.
If you watch that battle, like he's not really impeding anybody. If anything, he's a smarter fighter in Endgame than he is in Infinity War. So if you look closely, the first move he makes in the 3-on-1 fight is a blow to Thanos' head. So he goes for the head, which is what he said he was going to do.
That's right. He learned a big lesson. And Brenda, there's also that moment that Tony calls Thor Lebowski when he's on his way, when he's like kind of in his way. Tony's helping Rocket build the quantum tunnel. But you know, I don't think he slowed him down that much. I think, you know, getting done with that tunnel faster wouldn't have changed anything. When you have a time machine, you can go back to any point. They weren't really in a rush to finish that.
Well, also, during the time heist, Thor's drunkenness makes him pretty useless in Asgard, so I'd argue that's more of a thing than being overweight.
Yeah.
Rocket does all the heavy lifting, so if Thor had joined Rhodey and Nebula, he might have been able to prevent Nebula from falling into 2014 Thanos' hands, avoiding the final battle altogether, but if Thor wasn't in Asgard, he wouldn't have gotten a second Mjolnir for Cap to use later, so take your pick.
That's true. We needed that. We needed that big moment. It's like the best moment of Endgame. So we needed to be there. And then, that brings us to that 3-on-1 fight that you mentioned, Marina. There is one moment that we have to call out. Thor does use Stormbreaker to bat Mjolnir at Thanos, and then Thanos kind of uses Iron Man as a human shield, and that is kind of what briefly KOs Tony. Arguably, if Thor had been less clumsy, that wouldn't have happened. I think Thor could have done that, even if he was in peak physical condition. That doesn't necessarily mean they'd be able to kill Thanos sooner. Right. Thanos was in pretty good shape for that fight, and Thor had pretty bad aim even when he was ripped.
That's what
his weight had pretty much nothing to do
Being
with that.
Being clumsy and your size don't really go together.
I've been clumsy my entire life, even when I was a little Twiggy boy in high school.
Twiggy boy.
I was one of those Twiggy boys with a huge horse Adam's apple, you know? Just
Eric.
like I grew awkwardly, and I could not dance, I could not play sports, I was clumsy and lazy and stupid.
I'm sure not all those things. And plus, look at you now. A shining example of handsomeness and charisma. Charisma. Tumbles. Don't worry, guys. I'm really tiny and I can't do anything, and I'm not coordinated at all. So, you could argue that if Thor wasn't so big and drunk, that he would have been able to pick up the gauntlet and use it to snap everybody, because, you know, Tony told him to sit out because he wasn't in the state to handle it. But I think he was talking about an emotional state, because right before that, he makes that speech and he starts like talking about Jane, and he really just like has a breakdown. And to me, that's reflective of mental and emotional state more than a physical state.
Yeah, agreed. And that only would have helped Banner's arm from getting fried, but Banner took on that burden himself. He said, I was made for this. I was made from gamma. The stones emit gamma. I should do this. I really think, Marina, the pivotal moment comes up right before Tony's death. There is a little moment when Thor is having his final tussle with Thanos, and Thor briefly stops Thanos from getting the gauntlet. He hits him a few times with Stormbreaker, and then he uses Stormbreaker to weigh down Thanos' arm, and then he uses Mjolnir to cross it over to really weigh down the arm, because we know Thanos cannot lift Mjolnir. But this whole time, Thanos' left hand is just kind of free. It's just kind of there. He's just kind of like, okay, I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to use it. And Thanos uses that left hand to bat down Stormbreaker to knock Thor away from him. And I would argue it wasn't Thor, it was Cap. Cap jumps on Thanos' shoulders in that moment, which it kind of weighs Thanos down, but doesn't do anything to help. He should have grabbed Thanos' left hand. That is the hand that Cap actually had grabbed before in Infinity War. Cap knew he could hold it back. And if he had held back that hand, that would have given Thor just enough time to plunge Stormbreaker into Thanos' chest and kill him.
What the Cap?
So it's really Cap. It's not Thor, actually, in the moment, if you look at the details.
Such good shape. Can we just take a moment to just think and remember what good shape Cap is in? We can just just
the best shape.
Just really take a moment to savor that.
That's gonna shape my dreams.
Okay, so either way, Erik, while we're dreaming of that later, based on actually Doctor Strange's view of the future, okay, Tony was gonna have to make the sacrifice play regardless.
That's right.
So it was his own unique nanotech armor's ability to discreetly absorb the stones off the gauntlet that eventually led to Thanos' defeat, but that also required Tony to give his own life. So Thor's health really had no effect on Tony's destiny because Doctor Strange saw that before.
So while Thor may be to blame in Infinity War for not going for the head, I think he made big strides in Endgame, and doesn't matter what shape he was in, he was still just as fierce, a better fighter, one would say, and as clumsy as he always was.
Absolutely. And he came to accept himself.
Accept yourself. Love yourself.
That's right. He came. Really, it's his attitude that still needs an adjustment. At the end when he's able to look over and let Peter Quill be the captain of that ship. That's the captain we need. He's the captain now. What a hero. What a hero.
That's what.
All right, Marina, we have time just for one final
Box of scraps!
Box of scraps question. And staying with this theme of the Marvel Afterlife, our question is, have you ever felt or experienced a supernatural event that has led you to believe that an afterlife could be real?
Yeah, I actually have. I'll make it very quick. But a long time ago, I used to work for a different company totally. And the person who was my boss, they had a kid who had passed away. And they introduced me to their kid because they're just like, and I really think this is like healthy and good. They kept their kid really as part of their life and as part of the business that I worked for. And everybody that came to the business, they would be like, hey, we really incorporate this person into the kind of ethos and the culture of our workplace. And in a lot of non-white cultures are like this, where like people pass away, but they keep them around spiritually. But so I was like literally introduced to the kid who had passed away by the dad, and that night, I woke up at 3 a.m. because let's say you're in a crowded room and someone's staring at you, you can like feel it. I woke up because I had that feeling, and I rolled over in my room, and there was like a big black, how do you want to say it? Like, even though it's night, it's not pitch black, but whatever ambient light there was being sucked into a vortex. Yeah, and that vortex was there, and I was like, and I'm like really into like horror, ghosts. You guys know this about me. So I'm not trying to with shit. I'm not trying to with shit.
Right. You don't want to scoff at the
I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I was I was like, you know what? You do you. We are fine. This is cool. Whatever. And in my brain, I was like, we're cool, dude. We're cool. Everything's cool. He like disappeared. And so I ran into work the next day, not putting 2 and 2 together. And I was like, oh my God, this thing happened. It appeared in my room. And my boss was like, that was my kid, obviously. And I was like, oh my God, of course it was. Because he was just like checking me out and like seeing who is the new person like working at the company.
Wow, I've got chills.
Isn't that crazy? Because he wasn't bad. He was just like wild. So nice.
It's just how you interpreted what the passage to the other side was in that
crazy.
moment. And it is scary. If you don't know what it is, it's scary, right? But it doesn't have to be scary.
We were chill.
That's so cool.
Yeah, what about you?
I don't have a personal story. I have my mom's story, so I'm just going to tell her version of it. I don't want to take this as my mom's story. It has to do with my family, and it gives me chills every time she tells it. So I am the youngest of 5, and my mom, God bless her, she raised all of us, and my dad's in the picture too. I don't want to make it sound like my mom did alone, but my dad was in the Navy. He was on deployment a lot. So my mom, she did kind of have to be the Earth mom and take care of all these kids. And the first kid she had was my older sister, and my mom was young. She was in her early 20s, and it was a rough delivery. My mom was in rough shape, and she almost did not make it. They had to tell my dad to leave the room. My mom was losing a lot of blood, and so my mom was she just passed it. They gave her whatever, just kind of knock her out while they did what they had to do, and she had a vivid vision of her ancestors applauding and welcoming her to the other side.
Oh my God.
And the way my mom, I'm not doing it justice, the way my mom tells this, it's just like when someone tells a story of something that really happened to them with this conviction, and you're like, yes, this happened to you. This is not bullshit. And they were applauding her, and she felt warm, and she felt at peace, and was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. But she knew in that moment that she could not go with them, that she had her daughter and her future kids that she need to stay on Earth to help take care of. So she could not go on, and then she woke up, and her and there were people there that my mom did not recognize, but just kind of knew. She sensed that they were related. And then she described this experience to her sister, who's going through a hard time right now. So it means a lot to me that my mom had this connection, and she told this to me out of this connection with her sister. And her sister told my mom that was an aunt who died before you were born. She described her to a T. That is someone you know.
Oh my God.
Or you would never know someone I knew. So that's how my mom knew that this was like a real thing that happened.
Dude.
So when I hear that story, I'm like, yeah, okay, there's something there. There's something on the other side.
Also, your mom is a huge badass.
She is a major badass.
Because okay, so like she almost died, and her ancestors' reaction was to applaud her. Like they gave her a standing ovation.
Yes.
Like
they were like, you're doing it. You're bringing new life into this family. Like, good for you.
Or just like, you're a cool ass person. Like you're just the best. Like if I die, people are gonna be like, you're fine.
You good?
Yeah, but like your mom walked into a standing ovation. That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and whenever I watch movies that kind of depict it, the ones that that are parallel to that, like Ghost, at the end of Ghost, where Swayze's looking out, and there are all these people who like hug him and greet him. It's kind of like, that's what.
That's so cool. Your mom's
or that's
so
what
cool.
It could be, Yeah. Oh boy, I've got chills now. We got to move on. We got to wrap this episode up.
Your mom's Black Panther. Your mom's Black Panther.
Right? Yeah, that's her ancestral plane. Well, that is it for this episode of Big Question. I feel like we went to some very interesting places, and I'm so glad you were here for it, Marina.
Me too.
This is so great to chat with you. Follow Marina at Marina Mastros. She's going to be on more New Rockstars videos. We're still kind of, we're taking it slow because you got some, you're still easing your way back in. But be sure to follow her, support her, everything she does, like all of her tweets, follow her, retweet it, show her some love. You can also follow me at EA Voss, but you don't need to like everything I say. Most of what I say is just like annoyed clapbacks for people who say, why isn't the video out yet? Just like, leave me alone. So you don't need to follow me. I don't care. But yeah, be sure to follow New Rockstars. Yeah. There's all kinds of great stuff we got coming out this month and into the new year. You can send us your big questions using the hashtag big question. You can subscribe to this podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a nice rating and review if you don't mind. And yeah, subscribe to New Rockstars here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe.